before we roll the clip is, when I think of being in possession, I think of the courage to show to get on the ball, okay? Big stage, Premier League space, you've got to have that courage to show for the ball. Do you have the ability to get on the ball and play? And then I look at the coach. Can he coach this attacking side of the game and build rotations and movements to get players on the ball? So this, for me now, the first clip, I don't think Tottenham players need to move too much. And I think at this level of football, after 7 minutes into a game, and this worried me on commentary, when I seen what happened here, I didn't say nothing on commentary, but I thought, I don't like that. That, for me, is an easy get-out for Tottenham. So it's an easy pass here to Van de Ven, easy to Enzo, and another pass is there. That's without any movements or any rotations. So that is courage for the players to want the ball or the keeper to make those passes. So, again, lacking courage. What could they do in terms of moving and making it easier? Drop off, make the pitch bigger, make it difficult for Neto to press there or come there with Jed Spence. Danso, go higher, take him out of the game, and then Porro goes higher and gives Garnacho a problem, OK? And then I look at one of the biggest problems Spurs have right now. These three midfield players. That is not a midfield to progress the ball through the lines and get it to who essentially is your number 10, Sarr. That is not right. But what I didn't like here, again, the lack of courage. I've seen players do that all my life. They mark themselves so they don't have to get the ball. And they can say, I couldn't get it, I was marked. You see Bentancur telling the goalkeeper, take your time, relax. No, these should be moving and getting into positions to get on the ball. So the ball then goes long. Again, this worried me watching it. It wasn't difficult to get out. It wasn't a full man-to-man press from Chelsea. And then the ball just goes long. You see all the players pointing, knock it long, knock it long. Now, listen, that can happen at times. You go long. But it was so easy and so often it just ended up at Sanchez. Now, they win a turnover. Now, Simmons, who comes on for Bergvall, is a technical player. He's scanning. There's space there over his left shoulder. That's what top players do. He scans this side as well. He sees him coming back in this position, Neto, and it panics him. Now, this is a real lack of confidence from a player for me, because that player there should just be, with his left foot, he then steps into this space, or the ball comes through his legs, and he drags it through with a little Cruyff turn, and he's then attacking the back four. So that, for me, this lad hasn't got a lack of quality. That is a real lack of confidence in the start he's made. He should be driving. So, again, Tottenham go back. Now, what happens in the game now we see, which is probably a little bit different from when we were playing, is teams are now so well organised when they have the ball. And then when they have time here, they can almost get set up in their sort of system with the ball. So plenty of time not getting pressed. So what happens is Bentancur drops in to make it a back three. We see this a lot. Bentancur just goes straight back to Van de Ven. You have just got to open up, and Danso is then driving into midfield. Simple play again. So can the centre-backs now help the goalkeeper drop back, make the pitch bigger? Are they showing? No. It's easy to be closed down. Then we've highlighted the two midfield players. Again, marking themselves, don't want the ball. Where's the rotations? Where's the movement? Again, what happens? They go long. And where does the ball end up back? At Sanchez. Now, this is the lead-up to the goal. So we know initially where it's come from. Again, just allowing the keeper to go long. Poor pass from Bentancur there in terms of when the first opportunity gets to play forward. But I go back to my point, this all starts from the keeper going long, and that's what we consistently saw right throughout the game. Now I'm talking about a lack of courage, about helping your teammate. Sarr's running with the ball and he's in trouble. The defending in a block, that happens. You get out, OK, he needs help. These three players here, the two central midfield players and Van de Ven, have got to read the game knowing he's going to need help or he's going to lose the ball. He's running into trouble, OK? We need to help him and get closer if there's that turnover. So he runs in, he gets in position. So Bentancur should already be over here, OK? Van de Ven should be here. Now, if that happens, Bentancur is picking the ball up there, and then he can maybe drive through midfield. He can look forward. But again, because they don't help the teammates and they're watching their own teammates play and run into trouble. Then he's shot, the ball comes from him. It's a poor pass. Caicedo is absolutely everything you would want in a midfield player. Wins it back brilliantly. Again, lackadaisical on the ball. Xavi Simons really poor throughout the game. He was poor centre-back, tackles, and then they find themselves 1-0 down. Now, well, look at this clip. So we're talking about them progressing the ball from the back. They can never get it into these positions, but they get it now because of a turnover. So this guy here, the man you've spent the money on, who's creative, he's got players making runs forward, he's got all the time in the world. So we run it on, he's got options. Can he come here to Spence? No. But then, if you stop it now, a player of his quality and the level we're talking about now, Premier League football, that ball has to go in there. It has to go in there. Little quick feet, simple pass, and then you're in a great position. Again, he goes back, Siemens. Now, we spoke about courage. Now we can talk about quality. Palhinha hasn't got the quality. Now, that for me, for a player playing for Tottenham in central midfield, for me, that's a pass you have to be able to make. He can't make it. So even though I'm being critical of it, saying he hasn't quite got the ability, he's actually done OK for Tottenham in terms of his job. But they go back. Listen to the boos. Now, the only reason he does a clever turn on the ball is because of the boos. Either gone back to the goalkeeper, but again, Palhinha's on the ball, 5 touches, because he hasn't got the confidence or the ability. Danso now takes 7 touches. They're not good enough on the ball. And you now get a situation where Porro's now getting the ball, getting closed down, and Xavi Simons is in that position there. Don't forget where he picked the ball up about 20 seconds ago, due to run at the back four of Chelsea. So what you've got is, you've got a lack of courage and confidence from certain players, but you've also got a lack of ability of certain players. But I tell you, a manager who can coach this, and this is Maresca. And we've seen this a lot from Chelsea. It's nothing new ever since he came in. But what you see in terms of rotations is, you've got the central midfield player, Reece James, now part of a back three. In the middle there, splitting the centre-backs. You've got your right-back. At times you see it with the left-back, with Cucurella taking up almost right-sided attacking midfield positions. And you've got Fernandes, who spent a lot of the game in this role. At times he was pulling wide, but he was also pulling Palhinha onto the last line. Now what happens? Comes into João Pedro, and what you've got now is, that's your centre-forward, and your right-back is your highest player on the attacking line. So when you talk about rotations, this is what the managers at the top level can really do. Pep Guardiola, Arne Slot, Mikel Arteta, Maresca. They can coach the rotations and the movements.
All right, so is it a question of the manager or the players? This is an interesting little chart to show you. These stats are per 90 minutes this season. We've got tackles on the left-hand side and the number of line-breaking passes along the bottom. So the further up you are, the more tackles you make per 90 minutes. This is what you're talking about. Palhinha's done a decent job for Spurs in that sense. But if you look here, these are generally players who are operating at the lower end in terms of Ugachukwu, Lukic for Fulham, Gomez for Wolves, Longstaff, who's playing for Leeds United right now. If we move to this far end, so we're going up here, +8, 10, 12 line-breaking passes. You've got Elliot Anderson right out there, but you don't have the Spurs players here. Where are they? We've got Bentancur and Palhinha at this end. Is this the problem, Jamie? They don't have that quality to break the lines.
That's the problem. And for me, for Thomas Frank, that is something he's got to grow. He's early in it. And what he would be, one of his first signings is Palhinha. Now, he is not capable, I don't think, of doing this. There was a reason why players and teams in the Premier League didn't buy him from Fulham. And there was a reason why Bayern Munich bought him and didn't play him. So that would be a worry. But for Thomas Frank going forward, when you...
On Saturday evening, and Spurs in 5th place, still booed off by their fans, and this is probably why, because it was almost entirely one-way traffic on Saturday evening. 15 shots to 3, 9 on target to 1. The expected goals is where the real story is. That 0.12 from Spurs is a season low for any side. It's their second lowest ever on record. The 3.68 from Chelsea is the highest of the season. As you see below it, 3.66 of that came from open play. We're going to be talking about passing. Spurs with one 10-plus passing sequence. They normally would average 10 in a game this season. Chelsea with 8 in that game. And this is not a new story for Spurs, particularly at home. They've been the best away team in the Premier League so far this season, the most points, but they've had their troubles at home. OK, not necessarily against Burnley on the opening weekend, but just 1 point since then in all 4 of those games in which they've taken just 1 point. And actually, they were slightly fortunate against Wolves to find an equaliser late on. all of those 4 games, an expected goals tally of less than 1. Jamie, you were there on Saturday night. You heard the boos, you saw the performance. How worrying is this right now for Thomas Frank?
It is worrying, and I've seen his press conference today and ahead of the Champions League game tomorrow, and he may be looking at it and thinking, I don't know where all this is coming from. We're doing really well in the league. This is a team that finished 17th last season. We're going into the weekend with the highest scorers in the league. But a big problem for Thomas Frank and other managers who make that jump from a smaller team in the Premier League to one of the big boys, especially when they are seen as a pragmatic coach, is actually bringing the football to these teams. So he might look at it and think there's not a lot wrong, but when you watch the game at the weekend and the home games the supporters have seen, that was like watching... It was like watching a League Two team against a Premier League team in the FA Cup. When you actually look at the stats and people who've watched the game on Saturday Night Football, there was a huge contrast with the ball. And that is the biggest challenge for any coach making that jump from a team in the bottom half of the Premier League to one of the big boys.
Show us what you mean by that then, Jamie.
Well, we're going to look at Tottenham on the ball. And there's 3 things I want to mention before